We have a very troubled world. We are seeking new leadership. We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India. India, as we heard, the Prime Ministers have pointed out that by 2047, India should be a developed country. India is to become, much sooner than that, the third biggest economy in the world. And of course, if we don't want to weaponize trade, and if we see the need for actually working together, then we need the kind of agreements that we now have taken between Europe and India. Let's call it the mother of all deeds. Understand each other, to respect each other is of utmost importance. Come closer together, try to involve in trade, in cultural exchanges, in people to people. That's the way for the future. Distinguished guests, foreign guests, also Indian students and everyone listening. It's a great honor to be here. We have a very troubled world. We are seeking new leadership. We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India. And we are also coming to India from far distant places like Sweden. You actually saw a picture in the last speech of the Nobel Prize ceremony, which is actually given in my hometown of Stockholm. So even far distant, it's an honor to be here. Sweden is, of course, a very small country. We have 10.5 million inhabitants, and I'm always humbled to see when I come to a city like New Delhi, which actually has 3 times the population of my home country just in a city. It says something about differences in the world. If you actually bring all the Nordic 5 countries together, we still don't count more than 27 million inhabitants. But all the same, all individuals should be respected and treated with dignity, and therefore always you should remind yourself that even small states want to develop and want to be sovereign and respected in this world of today. Just to remind you that even we are far distant, we have more than 280 companies of Swedish descent who is actually active investing in India. We heard about investing more in India. They are already present, many of them since decades ago, and they actually employ more than 2 million people here in India, the companies directly or indirectly. When you say you want someone to invest in your country, you will find that the answer to that is that yes, but you should also counter-invest into other countries. Therefore, it's also interesting to say that 70 companies in India is also present in Sweden. So we also have Indian entrepreneurs, companies growing in Sweden. As I mentioned, Sweden is small, and we live in a part of the world, Europe, which has been very troubled by war, by a very partly dark history, and we have tried to learn something from that. Of course, you saw the wars in the 20th century. If you look at my country, Sweden, you will have to go back to more the 17th century, but it's the same story. We have been at war with our neighbors. We have had very difficult time to actually live close and nearby and to respect each other. So, for me, it was very important in the mid-90s when Sweden joined the European Union to understand what the European answer to the historical problems that we have been living with, what was the answer? It was actually to deepen our cooperation and to respect the fact that we have very many small nation states that need to come closer together. This European Union bases itself, of course, on the idea that if you trade more, if you get closer in cooperation and also in decision making, you will actually learn more about each other, you will be more respectful, and in doing so, you actually erase the risk for war, for more bullying that we see too much of in the world today. This trust building is very much done through trading, and this is very important when you discuss about coming investments into a country. Trading, when I speak to entrepreneurs in Sweden, is of course this idea that I get, that is making something differently than before, that actually solves a problem which I have seen and others have not really understood yet. But they all face the same problem, that's when they want to grow. Because that's how you get economy of scale, that's how a big, good idea could become something, a thriving company. And they all say the same thing. Sweden is very much too small for a growing company. And of course, where do you go from a small country? You go to other countries, you meet other individuals. So they very shortly, when they expand, become export-oriented. I think this is an explanation why small nation states often are those that are most pro-free trading. Because it's obvious, you can't just ring-fence the nation states and think everything happens in this country. So we have learned that to become strong in entrepreneurship, in companies, we need to trade with the world. Is this only true then for small countries? Well, I would say in this digital era, with new components and new ways of making companies thrive, this has also changed the way that we must look upon trade. If you want to grow now, you must grow not in a nation costume, you must go global. Not all companies, of course, but many that want to grow now have a global arena. And of course, to become a global company with global presence is about learning about different cultures, different circumstances. But the one question you will face as an entrepreneur is, of course, you can't burden too much when you come into nation states with bureaucracy, with different regulations, with different cost system, or telling them that you're not allowed to do this and that. What then happens is that the companies will not grow. And if you want employment, if you want development, if you want more trade, these are the issues you actually have to do something about. That's the lesson of Europe. It's not perfect. We have tried to form this single market, now 27 countries together, and all of that is, of course, only 450 million inhabitants. Now we are coming to a third of the Indian population, but all the same, that's our way of trying to solve the historical problems we have had, and in doing so, also creating development in our time. For us, it's very interesting to look at India. India, as we heard, the Prime Ministers have pointed out that by 2047, India should be a developed country. India is to become, much sooner than that, the third biggest economy in the world. And of course, India has a very interesting demographic profile in a world where actually most of the developed world are now facing decreasing population and low fertility rates. India stands out, not as if the effect of this is not seen in India. It is actually. Even India now is below the replacement level when it comes to fertility, when it comes to rise of your population, but you're not even close to other countries here in Asia or in Europe when it comes to very low fertility rates. Therefore, India, through this 21st century, will continue to grow its population, not as fast as in the past, but still growing. And just to remind you that one of the driving forces behind the rapid development in the world has been the rapid increase in the world population. We actually only 100 years ago had 2 billion inhabitants of the world. Now it has quadrupled in just 100 years to more than 8 billion. And what has happened is that at the same time, a lot of poverty has been pushed back throughout many parts of the world, not everywhere, but all the same. And of course, this has created demand, new business situation for entrepreneurs to solve problems and to meet this demand from a growing world population. And we have actually taken this for granted, as if this was forever to grow, and therefore the markets should also continue to grow. But the truth is that in many parts of Europe, actually all parts of the developed world, you now see a different path. So with lower fertility rates, when a crash down on migration, which we have a lot of discussions about in Europe, we de facto have a decreasing of the population. You see it in Europe. It's only the beginning now. It will continue. You see it also here in Asia, in Japan, Korea, China, but not in India. And when you see a decreasing population, this will affect growth. Because if you don't get the same demand, and if you don't have this automatic increase in demand, you will have to solve growth issues in another way. And of course, the only thing happening is not only a decreasing population, it's also an aging population. That need not be a problem in itself, but it's actually a different composition than what we used to have, with countries that were dominated by young people, by teenagers, and where very few were actually very old. And now if you look at the future, we will turn this the other way around. So we will be very dominated by older people, really older people, above the age of 80. And of course, the fewer will be the young people. Is that problematic? Yes, in many ways it's problematic. A lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of the ideas comes out actually from young people. It's very often the youth that says that we have to do things differently. We need to go in a different direction. And of course, if they are smaller in numbers, the impact will be less. And on the other side, older people who do a lot of good for society, but they have sometimes a tendency to say it was better before, in the old days, looking back when everybody was happy. And the problem with that is that it's very seldom true. It's actually never been better than now, even though we have a lot of problems in this world. But this balance is important. So India, not being as affected as other parts of the developed world, still having a very well-educated young generation, is now coming into the world in a very interesting position. That's why you have a lot of people now coming to India, because you have so much interesting ahead of you. As mentioned, we had this agreement, and I think this is very important in this world. I've now mentioned trade. I don't believe in world leaders weaponizing trade that we see at the moment. Trade should be a source for good, for development. And that's why your Prime Minister said that you want to be developed by 2047. You want to see better living conditions. You will use this growth, this increased better living conditions also for creating better environment, better circumstances for companies. And if we don't want to weaponize trade, and if we see the need for actually working together, then we need the kind of agreements that we now have taken between Europe and India. I think this is the way for the future. It's actually, in this world, so different from a lot of the other answers. And look at the strength of this. It's actually bringing 2 billion, that's 1/4 of the population of the world, 2 billion together in a trade area, which actually together will be 1/4 of the GDP of the world. And it's, of course, not a perfect agreement. It has been discussed for more than 20 years. That's a negotiation time to be respected. But all the same, now it's in a decision. It's not in place yet because we are democracies, both here in India and in Europe, in European Parliament, European Council. This has to be approved. We hope to see it come into function by 2027. Exactly as we often know in Europe, it takes a while before it comes into full-fledged functioning. So you will see partly a growing free trade agreement that comes into place. Don't underestimate what this will mean. Because this means, and I hear this with my businesses in Sweden, where can we go where we have a rules-based idea for our trade? That's not an odd answer. One of the toughest questions for entrepreneurs is, how do I relate to rules of engagement in different countries? And is it respected when it comes to the judicial system? Is it respected by political leaders? Because otherwise they face the risk that there can be interference or decision-making which goes against foreign owners or many of these ideas that we see in the world. And frankly, that will not bring investments to anyone, and definitely not even to India. So what we are asking for is, of course, secure and safe boundaries for how this trade could actually continue, on what conditions, with respect that we are different, that we even may have different regulatory systems, but respect that means that we can foresee for a foreseeable future what are the conditions for trade. When this comes to play, come to work, you will see a redirection. That's what I hear in Europe, for more to come to India, because there are other parts of the world where it's very tough at the moment to actually be, if you believe in rules-based trading and you don't want to move in to a kind of weaponized, authoritarian, leaning way of trying to conduct for the future. So this conference is very important in the sense that it's trying to answer to a lot of the questions we have today. And I think I've been trying to explain why Europe is so keen to see partnership with countries that see the same challenges as Europe do. And just to come back to where I started, in this world, being big is of course beautiful. India is very big, very important country. But being small is also beautiful and also important. And I think that the combination to understand each other, to respect each other, is of utmost importance. We have so much historical experience when we have not done this. And let's learn from that experience. Come closer together. Try to involve in trade, in cultural exchanges, in people-to-people contact, and you will see a different world emerging. In my new capacity, I've been for many years Prime Minister in Sweden. I'm now also chair of the Swedish hospitality industry. And just to point out also the fact that I see everywhere that we also want to come to India as tourists and to see more than just being here on business trips. This is also as important as everything else. But this also works both ways. When we are on hospitality adventures, we want to see the world. We want to see something different. We want to eat something different. We want to smell something different. Out of that comes respect, trust, curiosity is met. That is a better pathway for the world. So don't ask for leaders to close the world, but more for opening up the world. And in doing so, doing it in mutual respect with the kind of agreements that was actually presented here in January of 27. I saw they call it the mothers of all deals. Well, that's respectful to refer to your own mother, but perfect. Let's call it the mother of all deals. It's still to be taken into practice. It should be used, and it will bring our two continents closer together. That's the way for the future. Thank you very much.